In my mind, I did not believe I was a victim. I believed that sex trafficking was a white van, that people were getting kidnapped and, children from overseas. It wasn't until I had a real conversation with Officer Day, opened up and told him my story, that he had to tell me, this is textbook sex trafficking. This man that you believe is your boyfriend is doing this to other people. Like, we know this guy, this is what he does. And at that moment, I realized, this is real. This is what's going on. I was born December 27, 1992. My parents were married at the time. My dad struggled with alcoholism, and my mom struggled with stepping out on my dad habitually. So I learned real early on in life to kind of thrive in chaos. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, my mom started seeing another man outside of the marriage, and that led to my dad being incarcerated. During that time, my mom moved her new boyfriend in. He physically and mentally abused me and my brother. My dad, when he got out, he worked hard. He evangelized, led praise and worship, and later went on to get custody of me and my brother, Elijah. During that time, he still struggled with alcoholism. By the time I was 13 years old, I would then find myself very bitter with God and rebellious. At that age, I would start sneaking my brother's Adderall, smoking marijuana, and smoking cigarettes. I still managed to make it through school, go to Job Corps, and receive an accounting certification at 16, 17 years old. But soon after that is when everything kind of took a turn for the worst. I was in the streets, kind of just sleeping around, partying, ended up getting hooked on cocaine, was smoking marijuana and drinking regularly. And during this time, I had a friend who knew my situation and knew that I was in need of money. She let me know, hey, you can get paid just to go on dates with somebody. I had no idea what that entailed. But in a 17-year-old mind, you're like, quick cash just to go on a date with somebody, that's amazing. Well, I obviously went on the date and realized that it entailed a lot more than just going on a date with somebody. I later on in the night would see her boyfriend beating one of the other girls for money from the dates. At this time, realized I was in over my head because he was a known gang member. I just kind of was going to comply to survive at that point. And this would go on until I was about 20 years old. So at the age of 20, I moved back in with my dad and his girlfriend. I found myself regularly using Loratab, Xanax, and cocaine and drinking on a regular basis. But I felt like I could do that because I was functioning, and that meant, if I wanted to sleep around, I would, and just kind of use people to get what I wanted in life. It wasn't much over a year of doing all that before I would meet Elias. He was 24 years old. He was fresh out of the penitentiary for drug trafficking. I was a drug addict, and he told me every lie I needed to hear. I quickly was consumed with the lies and decided I was going to quit my job to go sell drugs with him. It wasn't long before the beating started. He would physically abuse me, mentally abuse me. We had two kids that were under 2 years old, and he wasn't making enough money from selling dope to support a dope habit and to live our lifestyle. So that meant that I was going to have to prostitute myself for him. I became pregnant again with twin sons that would later pass away 5 months in utero due to his abuse. Then came along my third child, my other daughter. So during that time, we were still just kind of hotel to hotel, and this cycle would kind of continue on for a few more years. He would beat me, have me turning tricks, and having me do whatever he wanted me to do, isolating me from my family. Finally, there was a breakthrough. I had managed to get an apartment out in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Elias went to jail, and I was able to kind of decide, okay, I'm gonna do something different with my life. So I would go on to start college. Before long, I would find myself doing pain pills. I was functioning. I was taking care of 3 kids by myself. You know, if I can function and do what I need to do, then I have the right to do what I want to do. But it wasn't long before I had to withdraw from school. I could no longer find the pain pills, so I quickly turned to fentanyl and heroin. Elias would find his way back into my life after getting out of jail, and he in turn got on heroin and fentanyl as well. So now we had a severe drug addiction going on that needed that support, and that meant that we needed more girls. Now that there were new girls involved, it seemed like it was kind of like the worst treatment that I had ever gotten. The more pain I felt, the more heroin I used. At that point, I would lose my children for the first time. I had managed to slip through the cracks with DCS and make them think I was doing what I needed to do, even though I wasn't, and I got them back. But it wouldn't be 3 months later that I would ultimately lose them for good. So I was back in Murfreesboro at my apartment. I had booked a date with somebody. I did not realize that he was a pimp. He would go on to rape me, then proceed to let me know that I was going to go with him. And he decided he was going to go to his car to get his cigarettes. But when he did, I quickly locked him out of the house. The police came, and I kind of tried to lie my way out of the situation. But ultimately, I would come clean to the cops. That night, they had me pack up my stuff and would take me to the Murfreesboro Police Department. And that's where I would meet Officer Sam Day. And he would call in Rescue One Global, and they would go on to let me know that I was a victim of human trafficking. In my mind, I did not believe I was a victim. I believed that I was living a life that I chose to live, and that's kind of what I deserved at that point. During my time in the streets, I would see several psychiatrists, several counselors, and nobody really picked up or noticed the signs of sex trafficking. It wasn't until I met Officer Day, and he really took the time to get to know me. He was like, this is textbook sex trafficking. This is what we have going on here. So I decided that night that I would go to a hotel where they were going to put me up until they could find placement for me. The first couple hours, I was okay, but I was quickly getting dope sick. I would go in and out of the psych wards, and I would find myself in jail as well. I spent my birthday in jail, my son's birthday in jail, and was placed on a psychiatric hold. As soon as I got out of jail, I went back to what I knew. And at this point, I was doing meth, heroin, ecstasy, Xanax, and drinking on a regular basis. I'd kind of lost my one reason to live, and that was my children. So I decided I was gonna do this until I ultimately ended my life. During that time, I would live in abandoned houses and would endure more abuse. I had just decided I just couldn't take it anymore. So I would have my dad pick me up and turn myself back into the Rutherford County Jail, where I had some failure to appears in court. I believe the Lord had already been working on me because I was tired, and I just felt like I didn't have any more left in me. I had already overdosed 3 times and died, had to be revived, and I just felt like if I didn't do something quick that I wasn't gonna make it. I remember praying to God, if you will just save me from myself to do something better and be there for my kids, that I will spend the rest of my life telling people what you've done for me. Officer Day spoke to me a few times while I was in there. He would connect me with a program called NAHT in Nashville. On December 19th, I was released from the Rutherford County Jail, and I was put on a plane by Freedom Aviation. And I'll never forget that day. I had been released from jail real early in the morning, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, that it was pretty amazing that I was going to get to fly. And when I got there, everyone was so kind. The pilot, Trey, was very intentional about instructing me and informing me on everything that was going to happen during the flight. And this would continue to go on throughout the flight. It was pretty amazing because I felt like he treated me like a person, not a victim, not a person who had been out here doing horrible things, but a person. I remember just praying on that plane as I look back at the city, God, give me new beginnings and a fresh start. Lead me. I surrender this to you. I would go on to meet Kim Gwinnett, the director, went to Missing Peace to work the program and participate as much as I could and give it my all. I would go on to graduate the program. During that time, I had gotten a job, started college. I now have unsupervised visitation with my kids. I have people that trust me now, like my dad. I have girls that I work with. I'm able to offer them guidance and hope that they can do this and that they can dream big. I believe now I am worthy. I'm a child of God. I can do anything I put my mind to. I think most importantly, I deserve a good life, and I deserve to dream big and do the things that I've always wanted to do, and that is not impossible, because one thing I know now is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Freedom Aviation Network is for the one, and I'm the one.